समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या? समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme related documents carefully.
In one way, the fact that our budgets year after year tend to be boring, so boring in fact, as to leave the markets befuddled, not knowing whether to go up or down, is a good thing. Although I'm also equally intrigued by why the markets do not see a lower than budgeted fiscal deficit and a substantially lower estimate for the next year as a good thing. This I might see as the best and the bravest part of the budget. A genuine success when big economies across the world are struggling with their out of control fiscs. Do the markets not reward fiscal discipline? Don't ask me. I won't even try to understand the markets. Trying to decode politics is hard enough, but more fun and reputationally safer too. Staying with politics for a minute, the most audacious and positive statement in the budget is the intention to amend the Atomic Energy Act and Civil Liability for Nuclear Damage Act. You might think that I am getting distracted, but this really is the most important takeaway from my point of view. Read this with the target of 100 gigawatt. 1 gigawatt is 1000 megawatts, so 1 lakh megawatts. That much of nuclear power by 2047. Read it also with the quick adjustments forced by the return of Donald Trump. If Trump is transactional, what will India offer as give in return for any take from him? Sizable nuclear purchases, remember Westinghouse? That can work like magic. For that, India must amend its Dead on Arrival Civil Liability and Nuclear Damage Act, or CLNDA, passed by the UPA government in 2010. Its main killer clause or suicide clause, allowing the operator to sue the supplier for damages in case of an accident, was inserted on the BJP's insistence then. Having lost out on the confidence vote over the civil nuclear deal, it now got even by preventing the UPA and India from consummating that deal for clean energy. The law as it exists stands in contravention, or let's say non-compliance, with the Convention on Supplementary Compensation for Nuclear Damage, or CSC. It's a global convention which limits the liability on the operator and immunizes the supplier, which means if company A buys nuclear reactors and runs the plant, that company A has the liability, not the company that supplied the machinery for the nuclear plant. A BJP chafing from that nuclear deal defeat in parliament and also followed by the 2009 election loss, then had found fortuitous tailwinds in the perfectly timed, for their politics, perfectly timed and controversial 2010 Supreme Court verdict on Bhopal gas tragedy liability. It brought the liability issue back into public opinion. The left and the right combined with environmentalists, and liability law was strangled. If the BJP detoxifies the same law now, it will bring economic, environmental, and most of all, strategic benefits. It will be another welcome turnaround after the Modi government's embrace of the civil nuclear deal, which also BJP had opposed before him. Strategic shift towards Washington, and don't forget the border settlement with Bangladesh it had opposed under the UPA. If it goes through, it will be another case of Der Aaye, Durust Aaye. More than that, it will also be useful for BJP in its domestic politics, because 6,600 megawatts of nuclear power have been allocated to be built in Andhra Pradesh, and that is where 2,067 acres of land has already been set aside. So they are waiting for this mega nuclear park to come in. That is 6.6 gigawatts. For more details on the complexity of this liability question, you can check out this Ashley Tellis paper on carnegieendowment.org. You will see it on your screens. I am also sharing a link with you. Let's keep our fingers crossed and hope that this budget promise will be met soon. Ideally, before Modi heads to his first meeting with Trump 2.0. Back to the conventional aspect of the budget now. This string of what might be described as boring budgets underlines consistency, and consistency is actually a good thing. No sharp shifts or policy initiatives. A budget, after all, is meant to be a government's annual statement of accounts. The era when it used to set out the government's evolving views on political economy, especially reform, ended some time back. There are two reasons for it. One, that political economy is now fronted by the political leadership. Read Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself. And second, there is deep skepticism already built into public opinion when it comes to stirring announcements in the budget. The point that P. Chidambaram once raised or sort of reflected on: what matters, outlays or outcomes? Now tempers expectations from the budget. In the past 11 years, the most sweeping economic reforms were announced not in any budget but in a series of press statements during the pandemic. Most of these, from the farm reform laws to the labor codes, have lost their way. The first repealed, and the rest meandering through this systemic maze. I prefer systemic to bureaucratic. Those of us who were so excited by that flurry of reform that we hailed it as a true and virtuous example of a government not wasting a crisis are now chastened. India's political economy is back to its basics, or let me be reckless enough to say, to its Congress socialist basics. The only headline-worthy highlight of this budget, for example, will be the income tax relief for the enormously numerous lower end of the middle classes, with annual incomes between up to 12 lakhs and then up to 24 lakhs. This is a far cry from that audacious Ronald Reagan-esque tax cut for corporates that Modi government had handed out, hoping to light up fresh entrepreneurial fires. Privatization is forgotten and buried now. Over the past months, the Prime Minister has claimed credit for the PSUs doing much better under him than his predecessors. And over the past week, he has repeatedly used metaphors borrowed from the Congress and UPA and the Aam Aadmi Party respectively. Inclusive growth and Aam Aadmi. That insertion of secular and socialist that Indira Gandhi made in the preamble of our constitution through her illegitimate 6th-year Lok Sabha now has a bipartisan stamp of approval. Everybody agrees with it. And at least one of the two, socialism, will continue to be observed in letter and spirit.